Had a good time. We'll do it again next week at 7 o'clock. I'm downstairs, Dan, the All-American Gland, king of glandular radio. And I'd like to thank Zach's, of course, on North and Humboldt for sponsoring the show, and everybody. Zach is just...
Come down and see us tonight.
Excellent. Yeah, the Haskels will be performing at Zach's tonight. Also, every Tuesday and Thursday, $3 to get in the door, and then there's free beer all night long. And this Tuesday and Thursday, the Strangs are playing, another new wave group from Milwaukee.
Another glorious day on the road. We're rock and roll band. The van will start. Sure, Sun Country Wine Coolers, the drink of champions.
Hear what happened?
It won't start again.
Fire! Come on, Mama. See that?
What do we have to do if we push it? Will it start?
No.
If we push it. All I can remember is pushing the bread truck the wrong way on and off ramp.
And pop starting it in reverse.
Reverse. Actually, we're not freebase out here. Yeah, baby. Yeah, okay. Wow, I'm having a really good old time on here. We had all 4 of our tires slashed. We had to pull up at the same Motel 6 while they picked up our truck on a flatbed and replaced all 4 tires on a Sunday.
When I first moved to Milwaukee in 1971, I went to NMC Records, and I was looking at records, and this big tall guy came up to me and leaned over. He was about 7 feet tall, he looked like, and he said, he asked me if I played drums. And I said yes, and he said, do you like the Stooges? And I said yes. He said, you want to be in a band? And I said yes. And he said, okay, we're called Death. Brian Kutnick, or he called himself Brian Richard or Sterling Silver or any number of things. He was about 6'9". Very intimidating guy, and he was into Iggy Pop, so he liked to throw himself off the stage. He liked to kick the mic stand over, and he would jump off stage. He would grab somebody's beer and throw it in their face.
Brian would get in fights with people, and nobody understood it. You know, it was always. But he was like, there was my hero.
Like the Stooges, we then had bodyguards. We had 2 bikers from Milwaukee, Peeps and Ogre, who stood at the side of the stage. And Ogre was holding a broomstick with a mace, you know, on the end of it. So nobody screwed with us at that gig.
when Jack Stewart moved out, one of their high school buddies named Jim Siegfried moved in to the room across the hall from me. We called him Dr. Sachs when he was in Death, but he later changed his name to James Chance when he moved to New York.
I actually started out as their roadie, and then we also had a group of people that kind of followed the band, and we would all go on the dance floor and get into this really wild dancing, and we kind of end up all in a big pile, all on top of each other. Which was pretty like wild stuff for Milwaukee, and like, I guess this was 73 maybe.
And then he learned to play the saxophone, and I was across the hall from him, and I had to listen to him learn to play the saxophone. And he played that saxophone 18 hours a day.
They asked me if I would like to play sax with them, and I would basically just, I would only play on a few of the songs, just come out and do some solos, just totally free.
Brian would scream, Dr. Sax, Dr. Sax, and he'd come skipping out.
And Brian would just take his microphone and drop it in the bell of the sax, and Jim would just wail on it.
Well, and then when Brian pulled the microphone out of the bell of the sax, he knew it was time to get off the stage.
At that time, in Milwaukee, people just didn't get it. I mean, it was, and also there was no place to play.
But we somehow found the least appropriate venues.
I was allowed to book a band for my high school graduation, and I booked to Death for the graduation. It was a very unpopular decision.
You know, every gig is more depressing than the last.
And our lead guitarist, Mike Sullivan, was to my right. And all of a sudden, he stopped playing, and I looked over, and he's looking down at his guitar. And then he just rips it off and just throws it off onto the stage and runs off. And right on his heels was Jack Stewart, the keyboard player. He follows him off the stage.
And I remember Jim Richardson still just playing the drums and kind of looking around, well, what's going on? You know?
But the other two guys in the band weren't even paying attention to this. And all of a sudden we're up there, and then everybody looks around and go, where is everybody? And then one by one we just stopped playing and just walked off stage. And that's the last time we played.
They were so intense and so completely different than anything else that anyone had ever seen.
But we developed a following. And part of that was, and I think that's where the scene kind of springs out of us, is that Jerry Brish and Caleb were two of our biggest fans. And Jerry was a real promoter even at that point in time, and got a fan base of people who just would go there to be as confrontational as we were.
I do not have no TV set. I do not have no Mercedes-Benz. But don't you say that I'm lazy. I've got no time for nonsense. You probably think that I'm just hanging out. But don't you make a mistake. I'm just a product of these times. And all I need is a break. The gas ran out the sophomore year. I never got my college diploma. But now
About the fall of 1972, we started the Radio Boys, a name that Rick came up with.
we had hoped to succeed doing a lot of original material. It didn't take very long for us to find out that the kinds of clubs we were playing, that wasn't going to work.
The Radio Boys were playing at Hump and Hannah's.
Hump and Hannah's, the place to play.
Yeah.
We finally got there.
And almost nobody was there. But Jerome was there that night. And I remember he came into the dressing room and apparently liked us as a band. Apparently thought we could play.
Must have liked us enough to talk to us.
But he just critiqued our song list. He said, you guys have no direction. We were doing Statesboro Blues at the same time we were doing Rebel Rebel.
He was very forward. I think he just invited himself in and smoked a joint, and he told us what was wrong with us. And it was probably a big embarrassment to Rick to be
Called on the carpet, so
Yeah,
to speak.
right. I mean, because he had all that potential. He had
Yeah.
songs in the bag. He had songs on tape, and this guy's telling him that he doesn't have a focus, you know, which he did. But
We could have been a contender.
yeah, we could have been a contender. So when we broke up, Rick headed back to Milwaukee, where he hoped that he could find an audience for his original material.
And all I see is a grave.
People at the time were very confused about arousing Polaris. We weren't trying to be like Emerson, Lake, and Palmer. We definitely were on our own creative thing. Very early craft work and cluster, Noi. Noi 75 was just an amazing punk rock album.
Arousing Polaris, we were kind of a shocker band. For instance, our manager at the time, Mark Dahlberger, got us a really good time slot at Summerfest. It was Saturday night, 9:30 time slot, and we did a play kind of as we came out onto stage that enraged people. It was called The Pope Blesses. We lost probably half of our audience because they were so angry with us.
I met Jerome Brish on the streets on the Lower East Side of Milwaukee. He was like a street urchin, and I knew him as Oliver. That's what his first name was when I met him. Until later I found out his true name was Jerome Brish. He also went by Grabowski, because that was his stepfather who had left his mother at the altar.
You know, he was a tall, skinny guy with dark hair, as I remember.
Yeah, and we knew him. We never knew him as Jerome. He was he told us his name was Jerry Clothier.
Jerome, or actually back then he was probably Jerry, he got an acoustic guitar, and he was going to teach himself how to play acoustic guitar.
Well, Maryland was started in 72 or 3. Started that with Jerome, and Jerome brought in Caleb, so Caleb was playing sax, and somewhere Jerome found Scott Krieger to play bass.
The Maryland was the Bowie androgynous sex kind of thing, you know. We decided we needed something that was a little punkier.
Okay, that was in Hot Coma, and the name from that was lifted actually from this transsexual or transvestite theater group out in San Francisco. They had some play called In a Hot Coma, and we kind of kept up on all these different forms of entertainment. So we just kind of lifted the name because it sounded good. I don't think you're supposed to do it that way anymore.
We backed up Cheap Trick at Hump and Hannah's one time.
The big buildup, you know, I'm in a band too, you know, it's like, well, what do we know? We'd never seen him play or whatever. And there he was.
Jerome had a new set of leopard skin pants that he had I think he had sewn them so they were skin tight.
They're playing, and I'm standing there for a minute watching him, and all of a sudden he's doing all these moves, and his pants had ripped open, and he had no underwear on. So anyway, and he's acting
didn't
like
have no idea.
It's like not, but he wasn't acting like that. He was just. I thought, oh my God, what an entertainer!
It was like, oh, everyone's looking at us. Hey, we're getting popular. Oh,
we're gonna go. You gotta get out here and see Jerry. Oh my God, you won't believe what's going on. So everybody came running out of the dressing room, and everybody's going wild, and he's up there doing all these moves and doing all this stuff. It's like, this guy is unstoppable.
We closed with a Stone song, and he said he had seen Mick Jagger do this thing where he grabbed his crotch, so he went and grabbed his crotch, and it was like...
Right then it was like, oh my God, he didn't know. And he went down like this, and his girlfriend had her head in it.
End of the show.
It was the greatest show I'd ever seen.
After that, Rick Nielsen donned him the king of dick rock.
Then the Ramones showed up, and so we split off and started doing something else. They kept in a Hot Coma, and I went another way, started playing with Fish, and then later came Red Ball Jets.
In 1975, that's when I got together with Richard, and we were talking about getting a band together. So we put some ads in the paper. He had met Jill Kasoris through an ad, and then we put another ad in the paper and met Jerome Brish. And that's how Hot Coma had started.
It was hard to find some venues to play in because they're not playing top 40s, so to speak, and if they were playing any of it, they're playing it their own way.
Leading up to the punk thing, it happened very quickly, and the first band in Milwaukee was a group that I was associated with in the beginning, and that was the Lubricants. And we had seen the information on TV about the punk rock scene.
And Glenn came up with the name The Lubricants. And it was Doc Johnson's Marital AIDS proudly presents The Lubricants. And then a couple weeks after Glenn decided he didn't want to do it, then he went off to create Plasticland. I got to keep the name because I loved it. And then
I got out of jail.
you got out of jail. I'm playing God Save the Queen to him in a little cassette player in my car. It was this runaway train that it's like, we got to get on this.
Use for this set of rules. Got no use for this set of life. Got no rules for this set of rules. Got no rules for this set of life. And I don't have to prove myself to you or anybody else. And I don't have to prove myself to you or anybody else.
Lubricants were a great punk band. They went all in. It's like punk rock had arrived full on in Milwaukee.
Tears my brain apart. I won't follow stupid laws. And I don't have to prove myself to you or anybody else. And I don't have to prove myself to you or anybody else.
Zach's was it. That was the watering hole for anybody into that scene.
I came in to play in 1975. When I came in, right away, of course, I wanted to do semi-national acts. And I think the first semi-national act that I did here was on April 9th of 75. And they were called Smokin'. And they were from Atlanta, Georgia. And then, of course, I did numerous local acts, rock and roll type stuff. And that lasted about a year and a half, maybe close to 2 years. And then I was approached by Patty and Leroy Booth to let their band, the Lubricants, play. And of course, I heard what they were playing. I really wasn't that interested.
You know what was key in getting Damien's mind into what we were doing was Jerome Brish, I must say. Because like him or not, love him, hate him, whatever, he had the gift of gab and he could talk up a storm.
He wanted to also play. So I kind of set these two dates up so that they were kind of back to back. So I let the Lubricants play first, and then That was wild as hell. And then, like, within days, In a Hot Coma played, and that was the start of the punk days. And they talked me into doing it, and I thought, I don't really want to do this, honestly. You know, I mean, that just like wasn't my scene. I was more into rock and roll, and this was a whole new ball of wax for me. And after they played, and the crowds, and the crowd reaction, I said, yes, this is the new scene.
And we were all hanging out at the Haskell Hotel on the lower front porch. And just hanging out drinking. It's nighttime, and Jerome, you know, would just walk in like he always did. And it was kind of like a commune in a way, you know. And he walks in with his little tape player, and he's like, listen to this. And we're listening to it, and it's God Save the Queen by the Sex Pistols. And I'm just sitting there going, what the hell is this? You know, Jill was still in the band when they started to, you know, they cut their hair and wanted to go in this kind of more punk direction. And her being 7 years younger than these guys and being in a band with Jerome Brish, who could be a little, you know, domineering and condescending at times. Jill was really ready to move on. She was getting, you know, she was maturing in her own music. She had her own musical tastes. She was very into power pop. You know, she loved the Raspberries. She loved Brian Ferry, and she wanted to write her own music.
Jill decided to go her own way. From In a Hot Coma, we started
The Haskels. I found myself in their social circle after having met Jerome at a guitar shop. He invited me over. Apparently their drummer was not too interested in pursuing the band, and so Jerome was putting feelers out with different people to find a replacement.
The Haskels at Zach's was just like watching a band go from a pretty good thing as In a Hot Coma to a great thing as the Haskels. You know, Zach's was the place.
By surprise and make your average neighbor resent his average lives. Wives think of husbands while watching kitchen knives. Dogs look at masters with jungle in their eyes. That's when the brick goes through the window. That's when the brick goes through the window. That's when.
Okay, this is Haskell Hotel. This is the headquarters. It was a non-commune commune.
It's the kind of day when a friend that you trust missed that red light and in that school bus.
I was looking at a picture that George Taylor had taken of them and commenting how they look like Eddie Haskell and they should call themselves the Haskels. So, mwah. Thought of that.
Goes through the window. That's when the brick goes through the window. Just a little help, a slippery little help.
I think I was a security guard first. I think I made a shirt that said I was a Haskell roadie, first of all. So they knew I was a roadie. I don't know if Jerome knew that, or Richard. Richard thought it was hilarious.
It's the kind of day when I pray that you trust. We miss that red light and in that school bus. Every chair you sit on seems supposed that it does. You decide you can't realize that you must. So that's when the brick goes through the window. That's when the brick goes through the window.
The Haskells really did it for me. That's what drew me to Zach's in the beginning.
Confession, never saw the Haskels. The real Haskels.
Yeah, they were done before
us.
we came up.
I bet they were good.
you know, all the bands were like, everybody had like sideburns like this, you know. You know, they had like, you know, those like Sandwood Brown kind of mustaches. And there were like a lot of people running around like that. And that's what we wanted to do.
I was a little bit younger, so going to Zach's, it was dark, it was kind of scary, it was kind of dangerous.
Go to mainstream records and buy records, and I asked them, like, you know, where are bands playing around here like this? And they told me Zach's.
Back then was when the preppy thing started as well. So I just called them suit and tie Johns. That's what I called them. Don't ask me where I came up with that, but I did.
I've been walking on the tightrope, and I don't wanna no more. Said I've been walking on the tightrope.
And I sat at the bar.
And the day all the signs were posted on street posts or whatever, and so everybody knew when the punks were going to play, and so they would come in and try to cause havoc before the band even started to play.
But there was some kind of altercation in the pool room.
Well, let's see, the pool table was turned over one time by some suit and ties.
And the people at the altercation left Zach's. And about 5-10 minutes later, the guy comes back with a bat. And the bartender like pulls out a .45, like right by my head, and says, you know, get the fuck out of here or whatever.
And they ran, of course, so we never caught them, so. There was a lot of action going on back then.
My first experience at Zach's.
We had our little clubhouse at Zach's. So whoever was coming to our clubhouse was, you know, in the clique. They were cool. And so I think we were all trying to be supportive of each other.
I'm fit as a fiddle and I'm ready for love. Feel like jumping over the moon. I'm above cause I'm fit as a fiddle and I'm ready for love.
I remember stumbling through our first appearance at Zach's, and that was bad. Strangely enough, the audience stayed there and seemed to be willing to give us a shot.
I'm ready for love. Ready for love.
I remember the first show we went to see, the Amadots in Kenosha. And it was just so different than anything we had there. I remember watching Bula and just watching her move and sing, and there was something just very primal and enjoyable about it.
Hey, I'm ready, honey, I'm ready. Hey, little fiddle, my baby's okay. Ask me a riddle, and what will I say? I'm ready for
early, you know, rock and kind of glam stuff was falling into place, and it just kept motivating me to start thinking out of the box and doing all different kinds of music.
We always sounded better playing our own music, whether it be to our own ears or to our audience's ears.
Yeah.
And when we play cover tunes, we do them our own way.
I didn't plan on starting a band when I was when I actually got fired at ZMF, so I had to find something else to do.
The state of Florida and the Superior Court have found you guilty of first-degree murder, and the penalty is death.
I'll never forget when he played at the Palms and put a flash pot on his head. That was when he was in euthanasia, and that flash pot exploded. It was like, holy.
Awesome.
Who does
That's
that?
entertainment.
Fatalities now,
does
but-
that?
Shirilla loved, most of all, the organ you'd hear at the ballpark. And he'd imitate it. He'd say, deep, 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 deep. He was such an insane entity with those red glasses. You know, he could barely see. He was like Mr. Magoo with like crossed with John Lennon, and kind of like a used car salesman / prophet.
They'll throw you out, but the beer is cold, the hot dog's hot, and I found out what it's about, orange smile.
I think he was one of the greatest artists I'll ever know in my life, because he literally pulled everything up from nothing. He couldn't play a single instrument, told his sister he was going to learn how to play an instrument and then play County Stadium. He thought it'd be a good idea. 5 years later, he's playing an instrument terribly, and then playing County Stadium and making a really great record, and 45 Warren Spahn.
They'll throw you out, but the beer is cold, the hot dog's hot, and I found out what it's about, orange smile. Okay, Spahn.
We had a good Friday party. Everyone came, his sister and his friends and her friends. And at the height of the party, Shirilla descends from the second floor down the steps, and he's hanging on a cross, and the back of the cross says LSMFT, like a Lucky Strike means fine tobacco, you know, instead of INRI. And people are just offended, you know.
You out, you argue with the umpires and they'll throw you out. The beer is cold, the hot dog's hot, and I found out what it's about, orange smile.
Everything he did, every event he ever did, everything he ever took part in was one of the greatest moments in rock and roll history, and he was definitely there to tell you that it was one of the greatest moments in rock and roll history.
Long live new wave punk rock.
What you gonna do? What you gonna do when those around fill your heart? You're addicted to love and you don't care on whom you bestow. All your faith and your trust, you're afraid you'll be left all alone.
very beginning, at Zach's anyway, people tended to take us under their wings, and if they didn't, we told ourselves that they had.
And watching Buck fall into the drums, and you know, it just looked like so much fun and so chaotic.
I think people thought, oh, they're all the Haskell girlfriends.
Right.
You know, they're the Haskell girlfriends. They just, you know,
yeah, they're just giving them a break.
He was the catalyst for it.
Big
Because when he
shift.
found out I played guitar, the first words were,
The wheels were turning.
why aren't you in a band? I know some girls who want to be in a band, and then that's how we got together.
I was on the road a lot with the Lubricants. We did a big East Coast tour. When we got out to New York, our van got towed, and they told me I had to go to the impound lot to pick it up because I most resembled the description on the fake driver's license that they had used to rent the van with.
But back then, you didn't need, there were no picture IDs.
And then we took a trip up to Boston.
Didn't she bring a length of hose for siphoning gas?
And we would go to these waysides, and Craig and I would stand guard, and Leroy would siphon gas from cars into the van.
Yeah, you're gonna suck on that hose.
And both in Hot Coma and Arousing Polaris ended for much the same reason. The glam rock, art rock, roots of metal kind of thing, it had to go.
We were definitely out to make a fashion statement with Plasticland. And then we're also looking to capture a particular period of time that would be like the post-mod, pre-psychedelic era in England.
So I remember reading an ad in the Bugle, and this guy was looking for band members. He mentioned influences, Roxy Music, and Velvet Underground. The band was the Drones, and that's the first time I was in a band with Breck. But actually, I knew Breck before when he was in a band called Forearm Smash with former members of the band Death. That was Brian Kutnick, Jack Stewart, Marty Chinham, the bass player, Howie Epstein. I played in a band with him called The Craze, and later on he ended up in Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And Breck and I became best friends, and we started the Orbits together. I mean, I loved playing with them. It was a melodic, aggressive music, but it wasn't going anywhere.
I had met Jill Kasoris through Scott Krieger when she was in a Hot Coma. She used to come and see the Craze, and she came and sang a couple songs with us. So I kind of knew about her, and we had talked about starting a band together. So after I got back from that Lubricants tour, Jill and I started the Shivvers.
Only 18 years old, but she's a great songwriter, committed, driven. She put the band together. And I said, I'm gonna get into this band. So that bass player, he's making a lot of mistakes up there. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't, I don't know. But so eventually they asked me to join, which was like probably the best experience I had playing in a band.
Bands like Red Ball Jets and Shivers and stuff that like they were poppier than we were, but God, those were great bands.
I was playing a show at Zach's, lived on the east side on Albion Street, and there's really nowhere to park, so you just get tickets. And I papered the whole back hall of the rehearsal space with tickets.
And the cops came and arrested Leroy.
Right off the stage during a song.
And so I had to bail them out of jail, and so they could do their show and that, But we had a good relationship.
It was a scene, and if you weren't there, you felt like you missed something.
All the hard rock clubs and that, like the Palms and whatnot, they thought I was crazy for doing this. I mean, how can you be doing that? That's not even music, they'd say, And I'd laugh, all right, because I'd say, look, it's fabulous, and I'm laughing all the way to the bank.
Fortunately, we had some good radio here, so we could actually hear the Velvet Underground once in a while. I remember Patti Smith's Piss Factory single being played on the air. You can thank Bob Reitman for a lot of this. Is mostly who played these things.
And he was like the musical guru for the entire generation. There's still people that go, oh, I like that. That's because Reitman was playing it.
So I played what I wanted to, and if I was lucky, the people that listened to the show would like it. I also was aware of the fact that I couldn't go too far out, and you need something to hang on to, so you play something that fits.
A friend of mine was working part-time at WZMF, Marty Racine. He said, why don't you try to get a job part-time? We need a part-timer. So I dropped off this crude tape. Didn't expect anything to happen. Got a call back next day. Hey, your tape sounded cool. Come on in. Let's do an interview. My interview was smoking pot and listening and talking music till 3 o'clock in the morning. Next day he called me and said, you can start.
They kind of said, well, just do what you got to do. If you're getting numbers, that's what they want, and there's nothing wrong with that.
So my turn comes, I sit down. Lou Reed's Rock and Roll Animal was playing. As I proceeded to start one record, I hit the arm on the Lou Reed album. The needle went. Then the other one started playing. I reached over to shut that off, and I hit that arm, and it went. And then it was dead air. There was nothing. And from that point on, it just got worse. The next morning, I got a call. I expected a call from the program director. He says, "Hey, Dan, could you tell me where you worked before?" Oh, sorry, Jim. I've never worked in radio before. He says, "Well, you have a lot of balls. We're going to teach you how to do this."
Years later, you had people that would not say, do what you want to do. They would say, you play this and this and this. And then the numbers would go down.
ZMF has more the reputation now of being the free-form FM station because they went out of business in 1979, I think it was.
Now you can only play this numbers down. You can only play these songs up. It was just a slow strangulation of creativity.
When I actually got fired at ZMF for bringing in my own records, Elvis Costello and Talking Heads and Blondie, and they told me don't bring these things in anymore, and I said, screw you, I'm going to bring them in, and they walked in one day and said, you're out of here.
ZMF went off in 1979, so we had over a year or whatever it was of nothing in any kind of new music on the FM airwaves.
I'm sitting in a second floor apartment in Bayview, and there's the Clash. This is, are you kidding me? What is this? It's in and out. I'm messing around with the antenna.
Well, I started in 1980, and it was called WSOE, and it was in the basement of a church on Milwaukee Street, which has now been torn down. And we shared the basement with the Model Railroad Club. By the time I got here, naturally, I was playing stuff like the Ramones and Graham Parker, mixing it in with a few of the older bands, like the Velvet Underground and Lou Reed, because that all tied together. Eventually becoming more and more toward new music and a lot of independent releases, and of course a lot of local stuff.
Back then, just to be heard on the radio, even though MSE was operating at like 2 megahertz and hardly reached outside of downtown, as a 17-year-old kid to hear yourself on the radio was a pretty big deal. I don't know that the scene could have fostered without their support, and they were incredibly supportive.
All the bands were pretty cozy with Zach's because that was the only place to play. There were a few other places that would maybe take you because they wanted to see what the weird new scene was all about.
But Zach's back then didn't charge. He didn't take anything from the door. Now the band brought in the whole PA, and the bar got the money of the liquor, and then there was $2 at the door that Haskels got, which was probably $200 a night or something. They paid me $20 a night.
And then they started with, there was somebody with the equipment, and Damien wanted to charge each band an amount to use the equipment there, and they weren't allowed to bring in their own equipment anymore. And it was kind of easier because you didn't have to bring your stuff.
But I think Zach figured out, I think I should be getting a little cut of the door here.
And I remember when Jerome found that out, it pissed him off, and he decided that there needed to be another place to play, at which point somehow we found Baldwin and got into moving everybody over there.
Oh, this is also where the mafia, some hooligans blew up Jerome's girlfriend's car in the backyard there.
Yeah, so I woke up one morning to the sound of the fire trucks coming down the driveway of the Haskell Hotel, and Suzette's car was on fire.
The one thing I do remember is Jerome calling my house, which was a big deal, because my mom said, Kevin, Jerome's on the phone, like, holy crap, Gene Simmons is calling me. I was like, Jesus Christ, hold on, everybody.
But we moved back down the driveway, and the fire guys came in and put it out.
And then he's like, yeah, they blew up our car in the backyard. This is war or something like that. I was like, we're assembling all of our troops and we're becoming a movement.
I don't even know if Presley said that Damien did it.
And everybody's comment was, I can't believe he did that.
But Presley had a lot of people that didn't like him also.
I remember 3 stories circulating. One was it was Damien and the Mafia. The other was it was somebody who was a Zach's loyalist and hated Jerome. And the third was
they decided that I had blown up my own car so that I could have money to open my hair salon, which I was about to do.
I was like, okay, I gotta go back to my history homework, but I'm in. Whatever you need, I'm in, as long as I can get a ride from my mom.
He ran with it and said that Damien must have done it. And I ran with it and said, do I look like that type of guy?
And I hear tell that there was a police investigation and they decided that it was not accidental, but apparently they didn't actually care too much about who did it because there was no investigation at all into whether or not I did it. And there was nobody ever arrested or cited for having caused it, to my knowledge.
So we were both getting this publicity back and forth. Damien. Now he's the godfather of punk.
I'll tell you what, Friday night, I'm totally in. Totally in. As long as it's before 2 in the morning, because my dad doesn't want to pick me up after 2 anymore, so.
So while this was all happening, Kevin and I were starting the Prosecutors, and it's about a year after Suzette's car fire. We were living at the Haskell Hotel, and we were playing out. And I believe we played the Starship one night, and the next day we were heading to Davenport, Iowa.
But then on our way to Iowa, we stopped to get gas, and we pulled in our white 3-on-the-tree van into the gas station over here, and there was a burnt wick. A burnt rolled up newspaper burned all the way. They stuck it in too hard. It's like, hey, Doug, I think they tried to blow our van up last night.
So I don't know what to believe because we played the Starship and Zach's, and neither of us were opening up a hair salon.
Not unlike Damien Zach, Ken Baldwin was an open-minded person who happened to have a bar and was willing to try different things.
I have no idea how I met Presley Haskell. And he started talking to me about what a wonderful place this could be, how cool it would be if I started booking punk stuff. So I think the first band that I would have done there would have been the Haskels. And it would have been packed.
One day, Jerome asked me, do you play bass? I got a couple of band members leaving the band, and he asked me to come down and audition.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So baby, let's friends. Some say this is the age of true romance. Yeah. Between those lips of people.
Jerome wanted to be the leader of the gang, and he was always proving himself worthy.
Who's the baby, let's
I thought he was a very kind-hearted person.
He could also be a real pain in the butt.
He was the consummate businessman.
I've seen Jerry in action, so he's unrelenting.
I feel just like a human sacrifice.
There would have been a scene regardless, I think, but he more or less was the catalyst, jump-started it, and he deserves a lot of credit for doing that.
Some say that just it's a win.
Presley was a visionary, a wonderful creative musician, but he was also a dick. I loved him. You know, he was arrogant. You know, he'd tell you what he thought, whether he, you know, thought of your music or thought of you.
Ooh, baby, let's friend. So baby, let's friend.
What are your influences? Who's influenced your music? Where's it going? What's happening? What's it about?
It's about having a lot of fun and being able to dance as crazy as you can and getting laid at the end of the night.
The Starship was the greatest place. I loved the Starship. We used to rehearse down in the basement. Kinney let us rehearse down there. That's where I met Johnny Washday, because he used to live down there.
If you looked up in my room, you saw the grate for the sidewalk. You know, I could hear people walking to work, and that was pretty cool.
One of the things that I was anything but a bar manager, I was anything but a businessman in a sense of being able to run a nightclub or anything like that.
The way it started out was that it was almost like a commune or a kibbutz or something, where we all did our part. Somebody ran the PA, but they were in a band. Someone on stage was the band, but they might clean up the place. I was in band, but I worked at the door.
Usually I would get 10% of the door, and sometimes the door was almost nothing, so Kenny would give me a few bucks.
I can't live on $3 a night. I didn't really drink at all. I drank soda, and I'd go to Ponderosa, but $3 covered Ponderosa. But eventually Kenny agreed that I had to make at least, I think it was $25 a night. So whatever I made at the door, if it was 17 or 3, he would kick in the difference. The only thing is, on a bad night, he didn't make any money either.
He took care of me. He made sure I ate every day. He gave me a room with a shower. And he didn't have to do any of that. I in turn helped keep the club clean. I brought up ice, answered the phone during the day.
Kinney was a patron of the arts by having that place. There's no way he was making any money on that place. His game plan must have been, I want a place where musicians feel safe. I can create a good environment for them to become who they're going to become. And it was an embassy.
There were nights we did run out of beer. And it was usually those nights when you're like really packed and you really have no idea how much, how much people are going to drink. And that was one of the things that I would do then is drink something else.
Kenny says, since we're out of beer, all the real drinks are $1 as of now, and this one's called Let Lenny Be.
The Prosecutors were not a popular band. We had the same 20 people see us basically, except when we were open for somebody big.
We'd do like Tuesday night Mad Dog shows with them. It was like $1 to get in and $2 glasses of Mad Dog or something crazy like that. And there'd be 5 people there, but we just let it rip.
And of course, one of my true favorites was the Prosecutors. Absolutely loved them. I loved the energy and just having everybody together, and it was just a great combination of people.
You can't forget the Prosecutors.
Prosecutors
They
were great.
played probably more shows with us than anybody else.
Always fun,
And it
always
still
good.
sounds-
And their
Best
songs
songs ever.
still sound great.
Still
I was kind of a part-time light man for the Prosecutors. It's kind of my claim to
Claimed
fame.
it right.
Watch Rita dance.
reason we had 20 people usually at most of our shows is because there were about 20 musicians that were like our best friends. And that's pretty much who we played for. But that's all it really mattered, was that we were making music.
The other local band show of real note for me was the Oil Tasters' first show. They played at a photo opening for Al Gartsky and George Taylor. And it was at, I think, the Skylight Theater down in the 3rd Ward, when the 3rd Ward was nothing. I was angry at Richard Valier at that point in time because I thought the Haskels were just the greatest thing and it was just going to go whoosh. And from the first note that Oil Tasters hit, my jaw hit the floor and it was just the greatest thing I'd ever seen again.
You know, we kind of researched it. There was a band in New York called The Back Doors that was more of a blues bass 3-piece with a sax.
I came home last night, I turned the television on, and there on the screen was my girlfriend's ghost. Oh!
And now we had the painstaking task of coming up with a name that wasn't derived from Leave It to Beaver.
She started talking to me. She said, I've been living in the part of the world where everything's evil. In fact, I've just committed a horrible crime, and you better not tell anybody. Oh!
You know, I was in Presley's gang, so I didn't really want to write the Oil Tasters. But man, it just mowed me over.
Doorbell rang. What did you know? It was the police. So I just said, officer, officer, officer. My girlfriend did it.
I enjoyed a lot of other groups, but I particularly liked the Oil Tasters. And later, Guy Hoffman, the drummer in the Oil Tasters, became the drummer for Violent Femmes for almost 10 years.
At first, I remember just sort of thinking, sax, bass, and drums. You know? And after probably 2 or 3 songs, I was like,
Well, they caught her. They put her in jail, but she soon escaped. That's right. She came back to my house. She came back onto the television. So I just said, well, baby, please forgive me. And she said, well, okay.
Oil Tasters, that changed everything. Here are songs with these lyrics that are just stunningly sarcastic and funny.
Richard was pretty, the way his brain was formed was a little different than anyone I've ever met, And it was great being in a band with him. It was just so, inspiring.
The bands that were trying to play original music basically had 3 clubs they could play. Starship, Zax, and occasionally the Palms. And the Palms was a big venue, so usually when you played the Palms, it was backing up a national act. The problem with that was when a national act was in town, the crowds for Starship and Zax were pretty thin. Plus, audiences were so eager to see these national acts. As a local backup band, if you weren't booed, it was a great night.
with the Prosecutors. We played the Palms with the Gun Club and the Bush Tetras. I think the Bush Tetras may not have liked us, and they ran on stage while we were playing, and I took a drumstick, bounced it off stage, and hit one of the guys in the back. And he turned around and threw it back at me. Because I remember, like, it was just, okay, I deserve that. But the crowd was very supportive.
In late 80, maybe early 81, I think, some kids started shooting up from Rockford. And we tried bug spray, fly swatters, everything, but they kept coming. And settled here and befriended us. And that would be the Stellas and the Tense Experts.
We came up, I think, mostly because we started, this is a place that we could get booked and not be threatened. And we figured we had to move because we were driving up all the time.
And we just thought Milwaukee was, hey, that's doable. Not maybe as intimidating or tough to play as Chicago might have been. We came here with bells and we loved it.
They were just unpredictable in terms of what equipment they would show up with. And they had great songs and they had really good stage presence. And I just love them to death, you know.
The Stellas, on the other hand, were just ferocious. Stellas became Die Kreuzen.
The Stellas were born in Rockford, and then we moved back to Milwaukee in 1980.
And we came up here, the Stellas, the new original Stellas, came to Milwaukee to play a show at the Starship. And I think we opened for the Tense Experts, of all things, if you can believe it. And we had such a good time. We couldn't believe we were in this cool club with like-minded people in this great setting, and we got a good response. And within a month or two, I think we had all relocated here.
After I left the Stellas, I thought, well, let's start something new. And I think Mike would be a great front man, and so Sacred Order was born.
We were opening for Fear the next night, or the first night before that was Flipper and Die Kreuzen. So it was a weekend kind of a thing. And we sat in that hotel room and he would strum the basics of the song, and I'd thumb through a thing and go, no, that wouldn't work, no, that wouldn't work. All right, this one's gonna be called I'm Busy Dying.
Saw Podolak on stage, Michael Podolak, the singer, and was scared and freaked out and amazed how cool they were.
Not my time, not the bullshit side.
to get the name Die Kreuzen was when Keith joined up. And we decided that we had to we were going to be serious and make a statement and be serious about what we were doing, because the Stellas were kind of like, yeah, let's get fucked up, let's get drunk, let's throw shit around, break things, make people mad. And we still wanted to do that, but we wanted to do that in a more concise fashion. And we decided we needed a name change to kind of say, here we are now, this is what we're doing.
So Diane had a book, a German language book, and she had said, "Oh, Die Kreuzen, that's a great name. I want that name for when I start a band." And we're like, "We're gonna start a band. We're taking it."
There was a time when I lived at the Haskell Hotel, and there were many bands, the Prosecutors, the Tense Experts, and I hate to single them up, but they're very, dear to me and close to my heart. Die Kreuzen, I mean, those guys worked so hard on the music. Those guys would practice for a few hours, 4 or 5 nights a week.
Kinney got in a fight with somebody or an argument with somebody, and I remember he chased the guy outside onto the street with a tire iron in his hand. Somebody saw him and called the police, and it was like the SWAT team came in. These guys with vests and guns and the whole deal.
I went to the doorman, Dave Thomas, and said, "Dave, I'm only 17, man. I shouldn't be in here." And he's like, "Shh, come with me." And he took me around behind where he would sit at the door, and there was a small closet, and he just kind of stuffed me in there and shut the door. And he's like, "I'll come and get you when they're gone." Boom.
I remember one time at the Starship where I believe the heat went out and the pipes burst, so everything was like, the sinks were completely full of like ice.
And we found frozen turds in the toilet when we came in.
So everybody wore their coats and drank more.
Welcome to the cocktail hour. Only this one's going to be in the bathroom.
The Cocktails dance band, cover band career and era was starting to get stale. So what's next? I used to get my hair trimmed for when we were in the Cocktails at Moods for Moderns, and they always had, again, the rock publications. And they had magazines from the UK. And I was in there once, and I saw on the cover the Stray Cats. And I hadn't heard of them yet. But I said, whoa, what is this?
Yeah, well, what motivated me toward rockabilly was the first time hearing Robert Gordon. And again, I think it was Tom that had the albums. I think it was Fresh Fish Special. But, once I heard that, then we started going out investigating.
Sucks. Johnny wrote it.
I stumbled into such a good band, and I felt we were not as heralded as we should have been, because very, very Beatlesque pop. We were called RPMs. I came up with the name because it was racing related, kind of a double entendre, because it certainly had something to do with, you know, singles and such.
Jerome called me up and said he was putting this thing together with a Starship, because that was the first time Starship was having bands, was the New Wave Festival he was setting up. And I think he wanted to prove to Kinney that after talking him into having bands, that he could actually make money at it. Now, I didn't have a band. You know, I just had tapes with a band name. Somehow he knew Molly. I don't know how he knew Molly.
I used to go down to the mall, the Grand Avenue Mall, and I got to know Presley, who was working, Jerome was working at a frame shop, and I believe it was Presley that brought me to Mark's attention. We got together, he gave me his tapes, and we went from there.
I could have said that things are two people, can't look up sometimes, I cannot verify the truth.
As became a pattern in my career, I think the bipolar thing, I was politely asked to leave. I wasn't a dick, but, you know, I wasn't easy to get along with. I didn't play well with others sometimes. So that kind of imploded, for me anyway, and then I immediately joined the Red Ball Jets, and that was great fun for at least a year and a half.
By your side, if you tell me you're not going to lie, not believe you and maybe I won't, maybe I love you and maybe I don't. Depends on the mood I'm in and if the stars are right. It depends on the mood I'm
We wanted to do the all-girl band again. Right. We found the most brilliant singer.
And I think it was ads in the paper.
And then I found out later that there was a boy band called the Curves.
That's right.
So
yeah.
then by then...
We're more curvy than them.
We were way more curvy than them.
I'd already heard of Divo. I had like their first 45, and I thought it was great. And they did Saturday Night Live, and I thought it was great. They did the whole thing where like they're in the garbage bags on the ground, bouncing around and all that stuff. Oh man, this is great. This is cool.
People were dressing crazy and stuff. A lot of people had animosity against that and hated punk rockers or whatever, anybody who looked different.
And they opened up their car windows and he leaned out and yelled, "Hey, faggot!" And they threw eggs at us.
But yeah, a lot of screaming out of cars. People would yell Devo at me all the time.
And people shouting Devo at you out of the car windows.
Because I had short hair and, stood out a little bit, well, that means Devo sucks.
It's bizarre, and it really all came from them on that one TV show.
Radio started as just Stefan and myself with a rhythm computer. It's not much of a show, two guys standing on stage with a keyboard. But in any event, Kenny was looking for a gig, so we asked Kenny if he wanted to come and sit in with us. And Jimmy and Ellie had just left the Shivvers, and that was the nucleus of Color Radio.
Full of danger, eyes are flashing, claws like tigers. Sometimes.
And the first time that we played together, or played in front of any people, was at my high school. And I had run into Brian Ritchie at the Starship, the local club, and I thought, oh, you want to come early in the morning and go? He wasn't in school. I was in my senior year, and I said, you want to join me on a tune?
So we went to this school, his school, Rufus King, and we played "Gimme the Car," which at that time was a very provocative song.
Come on, Dad, give me the car tonight. Come on, Dad, give me the car tonight. I got this girl, I wanna. Come on, Dad, give me the car.
I was sick that morning, so I left immediately after. I just didn't want to not show up for this big thing. And then what happened was a near riot at the school.
It was chaos. It was anarchy in the school, just like you'd want it to be.
I was told I shouldn't come back to the school so I guess I didn't feel like I was suspended or expelled, but I guess technically I was.
Woman, she gonna know she's it, 'cause I'm gonna touch her all over my body, gonna touch her all over my body, gonna touch her all over her body, gonna touch her all over her body. She can't touch me all over my 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 body. Time goes by, I can feel myself growing old, burning inside, making this voice.
And Victor was off in Europe touring with Theater X, and he came back, and then I said, let's get Victor to play drums, and that's when we started. And
we couldn't get any place that would let us play.
When we took our instruments to Century Hall to try to audition for a gig there, and whoever the talent booker was wouldn't listen to us.
So we decided to play out on the street, which a few years later we found out there's a word for that. It's called busking. When we first heard that, we didn't know that. We just thought playing on the street. And no one was doing that in Milwaukee. No, it just wasn't done. But we wanted to have people hear our music. People that we knew or were in other bands would saw us, they'd cross the street and like pretend they didn't see us, or they didn't want it. It was so uncool.
We set up in front of the Oriental Theater where the Pretenders were playing, and then they came out of their sound check, listened to us.
And then Chrissy came up and said, would you guys like to play before us? We have an opener already, but you could play like 3 songs right before we play.
So we played in between their touring support act and the Pretenders, so the audience thought the Pretenders were coming on next, and instead they see these ridiculous guys with just a snare drum and a couple of acoustic guitars, and we were roundly booed.
And then as we played, some people started cheering, and then we started our second number, then more people booed, and went back and forth.
We played 3 songs, which I think were Kiss Off, Girl Trouble, and probably Blister in the Sun. By the end of that, we had about half the audience cheering for us, so we actually won some converts that night.
But it was amazing, the roar of the boos. But we just looked to the side, and all the Pretenders are right on the side, like, just giving us like, yeah. So, and that was great. The next day, we still couldn't get a gig. We still couldn't play, and we had created enemies in Milwaukee.
One show I remembered
was the show that the Violent Femmes opened up in Starship, and I always thought they opened up for the Prosecutors. What I remember about that show was that they came on and they said it's the Violent Femmes, and kind of everybody went like, you know, nobody cared and nobody knew them. And then at the end of their performance, people leapt up and clapped. And I said, oh, well, something's going on here.
I was in the Navy between 78 and 81, and then when I got out of the Navy, I started doing opening solo shows, and then I started doing them with the Femmes. I did an awful lot of those. The Femmes started playing Dance Motherfucker Dance because I played it. And the guitar sound was all attack, and I'd just go out and scream my head out for about 20 minutes. Dance Motherfucker Dance was co-written by John Frankovic and Glenn Racy. To this day, it's the only song I've ever made any money off.
We were playing at the Starship. Craig brought a sawed-off shotgun in his guitar case. During one of our breaks, he went out into the parking lot and blew off a couple rounds. And the next thing you know, the police were there. Craig had a choice, you know, he could either go to jail or he could join the Army. So Craig joined the Army, and that pretty much shut down that particular band.
Behind bars, not a friend in the world. They all thought about my security.
Laughing at the woman who's defenseless. Laughing at the victim screaming pain. Laughing at the motive that was senseless. While we rest our brains. At the cinema, everything is fine.
I saw the Haskels play at Fantasies, which was a rock club on 35th and Burleigh.
There was other bands playing there that night, and they're up doing their sound checks and all, doing their Foreigner covers and everything like that, and then we come up doing Richard's originals. And even for sound check, they were like just looking at us like we were aliens. And then when the bar opened up and we played, the crowd was just so upset.
And like people start going, I hate you guys and I want to kill you dead.
The band had to leave by the back door because they were being threatened by people.
Maybe around 78, we started playing like Beloit in Janesville. Old 95 in Janesville, biker bar.
They would stand in front of the stage and threaten our lives basically
Yeah,
and walk us out. So we knew we had to find a different venue.
But the worst place of all was Canada. There were no rules in Canada. The bar was full of bikers and punks, like without front teeth. So I don't think they came there to see bands. They just came there to fight. So when it was time to go on, you went behind the screen and they started throwing shit at you. People got bloody enough or whatever, and she decided she'd had enough. She would go get a gun, and it was a shotgun, and then she'd reappear in the club, and then everybody left. And then we were like, I guess we're done.
So it didn't go well, but we weren't discouraged.
Couch Potatoes in the Sandberg dorms may have been the first Couch Potatoes show, and we had bags over our heads. We were very well received.
Wanna buy a mobile home? I wanna live in a mobile home. Gonna buy a broken big wheel, put in front of my mobile home.
WMSC made a cart of a live recording of a song called I'm a Waiter, and I think a mobile home. And, that actually became a big deal. Lots of people requested it.
I spent a lot of time hanging out at New Frontier Record Exchange, a small used record store in Appleton, Wisconsin. And very early on, one of the employees told me I should buy the first Die Kreuzen record, which was something that just absolutely blew me away when I first heard it. Shortly after, I picked up a Couch Flambeau record, and then right after that, I found the first Oil Tasters 45 at a store in Madison.
The quality far outshone a lot of cities that were much bigger. So in the greater scheme of things, Milwaukee music, Milwaukee punk and new wave had no business being as good as it was.
Of course, who can forget those ex-Cleavers, Terry Tanger, those tunes were really fun. They're very pop, very little bit of cheesy reggae in there. It's kind of wonderful.
And we all actually were on the same page in the Cleavers as far as making a 45. Our first one was Smooth, Wild and Dirty Club Toggin', but I Will. And then after that we released Do the Confusion, Nocturne Danza. And then we released a Christmas 45 with Little Drummer Boy on it.
Smooth, wild and dirty. Wayside brains, when nine lives are so pretty, I got my feet in your chains. Yeah, with a barbed wire fence, I wanna make a mess out of you.
It was probably a smart commercial decision, because even now, 30 years later, we still hear it. It's Christmas time on MSE, and still my favorite version of Little Drummer Boy.
It's really sore. Don't put me in the head, I'm already on you. It's evening, it's over.
It kind of sets you apart from other bands. If you had a 45, it was something, even if it was self-produced.
Smooth, wild and dirty. I hate your wayside brains. Your big mouth is so wordy. Take my meat from your chains.
The Haskels, for example, the Ones, the Lubricants, those records have been bootlegged on rare Punk 45 bootleg compilations and that sort of thing, which has also brought some attention to it.
But also during that time we were recording albums. We recorded 3 albums over the number of years.
In regards to the second album, they let me in with 3 songs. I did Riot, Duplicator, and The Waiting Game, which they chose as the title track. Basically, I think it described our situation. We'd had a lot of local success, and we were flirting around with different labels and hoping for something more, so it seemed to fit at the time.
For a Midwestern city this size, there's actually a fairly large amount of records that were released, DIY records that were released in that era. And on top of that, the quality ratio of the records that were released, it's universally known that most of the records are very strong, whether it's power pop, post-punk, hardcore, straight up punk, whatever, where other cities like, say, Chicago had a bazillion power pop records, but 80% of those were Cheap Trick wannabes trying to get on the radio.
A lot of stuff from 77, 78 has not aged very well. Milwaukee music is sounding better every year.
Smooth, wild and dirty. I need it. Smooth, wild and dirty. You are so smooth, wild and dirty.
At the end, it really had run its course. There were all these other places that were booking bands all the time, and other places that people would go, and it just sort of just petered out at the very end. And one of the people actually who was trying to help me figure out what to do and everything was Caleb. You can't afford to pay me. You can't afford to pay these bands. Just pull the plug, and so we did.
Bastards were one of the first bands I snuck into the Starship to see. I said, well, I've been playing trumpet since I was 5 years old, you know, and then I thought, well, let's just throw it in there, you know.
We didn't really fall in that category of two-note punk rock. It was a little more challenging, a little more melodic, and I think people were kind of maybe ready for that.
And we loved things like Die Kreuzen and The Prosecutors and The Offenders. We had no musical skills to do that kind of stuff. They had an event called New Music America, and Eric and I encountered Glenn Branca sitting on a bench on the pier all by himself. We sat down and talked to him, and his advice to us was just like, if you want to have a band, just do it. And Eric and I were like, when Branca said we should.
Towards the end of Between Walls, Dave and I were so close, and we were really into the same stuff that we said, let's start a duo. So we went off, and it was just me and him. We were opening for the Violent Femmes at Century Hall, and we thought, you know, we're kind of scared to go up there as a duo, that we're not going to sound big enough.
And they were interested in a female singer, and I auditioned, they liked it, and that was that. It was the three of us.
And Lisa Wickland, after the M&S broke up, kind of joined the band playing bass, and we got Michael Ford, who was another person who just kind of said, I want to play with you guys.
A lot of people look on music as an art, some people look at it as a business, some people as a hobby. How about you guys? Tell me from left to right here.
It's a business, definitely a business. It's my sex life.
Yeah. 1984 really put the nail in the coffin for the music scene. The drinking age went back to 21, and almost overnight, half of your regulars were now underage.
The cops raided the place and actually went behind the bar looking for cocaine and whatever they could find. And of course they found nothing. And they did find a couple of underage kids, but they were going to pull my license as an example to these other clubs because of the minors problems they're having. So I had to form a new corporation, and a new corporation and a bar name. It was called the Spruce Goose.
You went to country.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yep, we pulled up for our show. We didn't even get out of the van. He told us to go away.
It was a scene. It was like a club. You know, we were all part of the same club, and which was a pretty amazing thing because the music that we were playing and listening to was, we were still pretty much misfits in the musical world.
That was punk. Really, to me, it was about being yourself. It wasn't about one style of music. It was really about doing what you wanted to do, what your own self-expression was, rather than trying to meet a market.
There's so much good music out there that was not as commercialized as everything is right now, and that was the beauty of that time, as far as I'm concerned.
We all seem to fit under the same umbrella of new music. You know, some, bands like, later Die Kreuzen and before that, when they were the Stellas, had a little more of an edge than, say, the Red Ball Jets. But again, we all supported each other. I think we all appreciated the fact that we were out there doing original music.
But I think the thing about Milwaukee's best bands came down to songwriting.
We had an enormous number of very good songwriters here.
If you picture yourself as a DJ back in like 1980, you might have had a new Joy Division that you could play, a new Clash record, but you still also were excited to play like a new Oil Tasters or a new X Cleavers, whatever was coming out.
When you see a bunch of 20-year-old kids form a power pop band, that sounds monumentally like the Shivers. And then you get to meet the kids and realize that they did exactly what you did back then. And they found the Shivers and loved the Shivers and played the Shivers and worshiped the Shivers. And the two women in the group sing like Jill. You know, what does that say?
It's just, it was really a magical time, which I don't think will ever be replicated in Milwaukee or many other music scenes. We were one great big family, you know, and there's a little fighting here and there, but for the most part, we all got along.
Back then, you know, the first time I saw Gordon, Gano, and the Violent Femmes on a Wednesday night at the Starship, if somebody had said, hey, these guys are going to be international stars, I would have made a huge bet, and lost.
Members of the alternative music scene mourn the passing of one of their own tonight.
He was considered the father of punk in Milwaukee, Jerome Brish. He was better known as Presley Haskell, recognized for his raw, energetic sound. His life stolen by violence.
Police are calling it a homicide. Haskell was found on the street, beaten with a baseball bat. He died after being disconnected from a life support machine. And as fans and friends gem the basement of St. Rita's Church tonight, they find it ironic that peace was brought by violence at just 39 years old.
He was always trying to find the next thing, you know, and we learned how to be in bands together.
Richard just said the most brilliant thing to me the last time I saw him, which was at a polka finger gig at Shank Hall the year before he died. You know, I asked him what it was like being back in the van again, you know, with some musicians toting the amps around, and he said, the only thing worse than being in a band is not being in a band.
We're coming from outer space now, and we are number one. We're coming from outer space now, and having lots of fun. We're coming from outer space now, the world is on their run. We're coming from outer space now, taking the city by storm. A city full of enemy of stone, taking the city by storm. There was a man in the open fall. No, we're coming from outer space now, and we are number one. Coming from outer space now, having a whole lot of fun. We're coming from outer space now, the world is on the run. We're coming from outer space now, taking the city by storm. A city full of empty stone, taking the city by storm. The man is way bound, the others are strong. and all